So you're thinking about moving to the Portland area? Well, in this video, we're going to talk about the 5 steps that you need to know when it comes to actually buying a home here. And stay tuned to the last one because this is a step that most people miss.
Hey, what's up everyone? This is Seth and Paul from the Home Team Brokers coming to you from Portland, Oregon. If you're new to this channel, living in Oregon, we show you what it's like to live in Oregon, and in this video, we're going to talk to you about the 5 steps that you need to know if you're thinking about moving to Portland, Oregon. Hit the subscribe button, tap the bell to make sure you get notified if you want to keep seeing videos like this about living in Oregon and moving to Oregon. People reach out to us all the time that want to move or live in Oregon, and we always love to hear from you. So if you're one of those people, give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, or you can even click the link below in the description if you want to schedule a Zoom with us.
All right, let's get into it. You're moving to the Portland area. You know, moving to a new place can be overwhelming. It can be stressful. There's obviously a lot of resources online, but in this video, we're going to talk about the steps you actually need to take, how to prepare yourself, and ultimately how to get into a home here in the Portland area. What do we got first?
Well, the first thing you want to do is find your area, right? And so this is going to apply to a lot of people from out of town. It can apply to people that are also already in Portland, but a lot of people that are coming to Portland or that have never been to Portland before sort of perceive Portland as a smaller town, which it is. It's one of the smaller, large metropolitan areas in the country, but it's really not that small. It is pretty spread out. It's not super condensed everywhere. From the westernmost part, like a Hillsborough, to the easternmost part, like a Gresham or a Troutdale, you're looking at like an hour and a half or 2 hours maybe at least with traffic. So Portland is pretty spread out. It is actually a pretty big place, and so when it comes to choosing the right area, there's got to be a lot of differences. So another thing that people are taking into consideration when they move here, a lot of people enjoy the outdoors. If you're somebody that enjoys the mountain, we've got one of the best mountains in the country in Mount Hood. If you want to be spending time on Mount Hood, you're a snowboarder or a skier, you're probably going to want to live somewhere further east, closer to the mountain where you're like an hour and 15 minutes away. If you're somewhere way over in the west, like a Beaverton or a Hillsborough, that's going to tack at least an hour each way onto your trip. You know, so There's a lot of different reasons why somebody might live or want to be in one area based on amenities. You also have schools, of course, and work, which is also going to dictate kind of where people want to live. And traffic here actually can be kind of bad at times. We got a lot of 3-lane and some 2-lane highways. We don't have a ton of highways, you know, so your commute, if you're just looking at something on a map, might not look that far away from a particular town to your work, but with traffic, it might be a really long commute. So that's part of what we're here for, is to kind of help you find the right area based on your wants and your needs and your lifestyle, because it's probably just looking online, if you've never been here before, it might look a little bit smaller than it is. You might not take into account the traffic and some of the other amenities that you're going to want to live by when you move here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at Portland on a map, downtown Portland is right in the center of the metro area, and really you have about a 15-mile radius all the way around downtown Portland. There's even some bedroom communities outside of the metro area that are still pretty close. So, you know, if you want to be in a more of an urban setting, if you want to be kind of in a true suburban area, or if you want to be in a small town, kind of rural country feel, you can get all of that. And like Seth said, that's really part of you know, why it's so important to get into speaking with us early, because we can talk about your lifestyle, we can talk about your needs, your wants, as far as the environment, the atmosphere that you want to be in. But you know, there really is so much that the Portland area offers, you know, kind of regardless of what you would be looking for. The last thing you want to do is get caught in an area that ultimately isn't as desirable. There's a lot of things that dictate, you know, why somebody chooses an area. You know, there's a lot of elements that you can get in a lot of different areas that are kind of quintessential Portland or Oregon, as far as the nature, the green spaces, the trees. You really kind of get that stuff everywhere, but you know, you look at affordability, like Seth said, schools, bars, restaurants, coffee shops, shopping, you know, how close do you want to be in proximity to a mall? What does your commute look like? You know, kind of all these things like Seth was saying. These are all really important, and sometimes, you know, somebody will find a perfect area, but there's just, for some reason, it's out of reach. Maybe it's too far of a commute. Maybe the housing costs are a little bit too high in that area. We always recommend that people have, you know, 2, 3, 4 areas on their list where they could realistically see themselves living. On the flip side of that, some people are really set on a particular type of property, and you know, the property that they find ultimately kind of dictates the area. So people have different levels of flexibility, working from home. So there's a lot of dynamics there, but yeah, the Portland metro area is huge. There's a ton of options.
And that's what we're going to be here to guide you along with and to help you with, is to show you some different areas that are going to fit for you. Good point about the urban and the rural lifestyle, because you can find within a 15-mile radius of Portland both urban and a rural lifestyle. Some people maybe that are coming from out of state don't, or haven't been here, don't kind of quite know that the different lifestyles can vary so much in kind of in a smallish, relatively small area. We do have a video on that as well too, if you want to check that out here. But all in all, just having someone to kind of, like Paul said, choose the different areas for you and guide you to those areas based on what you're looking for is really going to be helpful when you're coming to Portland, because even though it's a smaller city, it can be pretty spread out, and it helps to have somebody that's going to be able to point out all those differences for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the next thing,
yeah,
once you figure out your area,
you've narrowed down some areas that you like. You know, we've had that conversation. I think actually, you know, before we take this step too, I definitely recommend, I think we're always going to recommend that people do make a trip out here if you're relocating to the area. If you can schedule it, you know, if you can swing it, you know, come out here for a few days, a week, and actually drive through some of these neighborhoods. We're happy to put together an itinerary for you, so you can really get a feel for what it's like here. I think, you know, oftentimes during that trip, we're not really touring houses much unless you're ready right now. But, you know, when you are ready, you've gotten the pre-approval, you're getting closer to your move date, then we want to find houses, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And another point to piggyback off of that too, we have helped people that haven't been here before, that didn't actually ever tour the house. They just bought sight unseen. That wasn't really a thing too far in the past. That's becoming more and more common. Especially in this day and age with the internet and 3D tours and things like that. And some people, especially the younger people, feel more comfortable buying sight unseen. But kind of one of the things that you run into when you do that is you don't get the sniff test. You got to have a realtor that's actually going to be able to go in there, which is what we can do for you. If you're not going to be able to come into town and fly in and check things out, we'll get in there for you, give it the sniff test, literally. I mean, that is an important part of buying a house. Yeah. If it's a resale, exactly. If it's not a brand new house, to see how it smells, whether it's an animal smell or a smoking smell or some other smell that might be in there. That's not something that you're going to figure out online. So that is part of what we do for people, is we'll go tour houses for you, go make a video for you, give you our feedback on the home. So you don't have to be here to buy a home. We have helped people buy homes that weren't here, but it definitely helps if you can be.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, once we found an area and we want to find a home, what does that look like then?
Yeah, so, you know, the first thing you're going to want to do, if you don't know, is talk to a lender and get pre-approved. There's lenders that we can recommend to you. If you have somebody that you've spoken with that you want to work with, great, but it doesn't make a lot of sense, in particular in this market, to even go out and tour homes without having that pre-approval letter ready. The market is really hot, inventory is really low, homes are selling quickly, as I'm sure it is where you are, and so, you know, if you see something you like, it's probably listed on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and odds are it's going to be under contract by Monday. So if we're serious and we want to take those next steps, you know, we want to have everything in place. But let's say we have that, we're getting closer to your timeline, you're ready to start looking at houses. We'll be able to, you know, run a lot of different searches for you, identify homes in your area that could be viable. A lot of people send us houses too as well, so there's definitely some collaboration there. But you know, if you're not here at that moment in time, you know, when you're ready to go, Seth and I are going to be able to go tour houses. We can do video tours, like Seth said, really give it the smell test, get a feel for it, whether or not it's something that, based on the criteria you've given us, really makes sense for you. The photos can do a lot. online on Zillow and different websites as far as making a home, you know, look awesome.
Yeah.
But
we hear that a lot. We get that feedback too,
Yeah.
like, hey, these photos look great online, but once you see the house, it's a little bit of a different story.
it's not until you walk in the door, really get the feel for everything, you know, see any minor issues or major issues, you know, where we can then relay that to you and say, hey, look, you know, this home is great. I think this is one that could really work for you. Or, you know, we say, hey, let's move on.
And then the next step is going to be getting your offer accepted. That's going to be the hardest part of this whole process. And Paul and I will be sort of working with you to choose a house also that you feel like and we feel like we're going to have a good chance at winning an offer. And how we do that is really by first understanding the market. So a lot of houses right now are priced really at what they're probably worth. And because the market is so hot right now, they tend to go a little bit above. Some houses are priced above what they're worth for sort of similar reasons, because we're in a seller's market. So people sort of know that they can maybe take advantage, and they really want to try and get as much, or they think that that's the best way for them to get the most amount of money for their home. So you do see some above, and then you do see some also that are probably a little bit below what the home is worth. And that's usually a strategy for somebody that's just trying to go for as many offers as possible. They're trying to suck in as many offers as possible and potentially create some sort of bidding war. Regardless of what your strategy is, a key point in getting an offer accepted is for Paul and I to make that determination. What is the house worth? Is it priced at what it's worth? Is it priced below or above? And that's really going to dictate what our offer is going to be and what our strategy for winning the offer is going to be. We're not just going off of the Zestimate, right? We're not just going based off of what the house is listed for to dictate our offer. We're going based off of what we think the house is worth. So why is that important to know? Because if you're going to be dealing with 20 offers instead of 5 offers, then that's going to make a big difference in how we write our offer. Again, if it's priced below, you're going to have more offers. If it's priced above, you're going to have fewer offers. So that's a real big key. And first, having a strategy to having a winning offer is determining what the home is worth. That will kind of dictate our offer from there.
Yeah, absolutely. 2 things that are really important at this step. So we're ready to make an offer. We found a house, you know, that you really like. Communication and speed. So again, things are moving quickly. Likely, if there's a house that you like, there's going to be other people who like it as well. So there's going to be offers coming in typically throughout the weekend over the course of 2 or 3 days. And then, like we mentioned, you know, a property is probably going to be under contract come Monday or Tuesday. So we need to act quickly. And we also need to communicate that, you know, both with you as far as, you know, what things look like as far as the property, you know, what it's priced at, what we think we should make an offer, at as far as an offer price. But also we want to get in touch with the listing agent. We want to see what's important to the sellers and see where we can make an offer more competitive as far as the terms that we're offering, even beyond the list price. You know, at the end of the day, you know, sellers want to get the most for their home, but sometimes people need to move quickly. Sometimes people need to close quickly, but then get rent back. So, you know, we can actually offer to the seller, hey, you know, we can close in 30 days, but you can actually rent the property back from us for 30 days, 60 days, and that could make an offer really attractive. Shortening an inspection period, so we're going to get the home inspected, you know, maybe doing that a little quicker, moving through that process a little quicker, so we're not kind of mulling over issues that may or may not come up. Those are all things that could potentially make an offer more attractive. And again, we want to communicate with the listing agent, understand what's important to the seller, so we can craft an offer that's going to have the best chance of getting accepted. And when it comes to price, you know, like Seth was getting at, you know, we want to make sure that you're in a position where you're as competitive as possible, but you're not overpaying for the property. You know, so there's this margin somewhere, you know, where there's an offer that they're going to accept, and it's going to be somewhere close where maybe other offers that they have are, but it's, you know, again, we don't want to put you in a position where you're wildly overpaying and ultimately out money.
Yeah, and the reason why sometimes we might be privy to that information as to how many offers there are or kind of where those offers are at is through communication with the listing agent. Believe it or not, not every buyer's agent communicates with the seller's agent. Sometimes a buyer's agent will just send an offer in without any sort of communication other than to send a text or an email to say, hey, there's an offer on the way. And that's a strategy. You know, there's maybe a method to that madness. Paul and I's a strategy is more of a communication strategy, speaking to the other listing agent, finding out as much information as we can, and then kind of using that to dictate our offer. That also helps with number 2, what Paul mentioned is speed. Speed is more important now than any time in recent years in this market. You know, I've personally heard a few stories from clients of ours that basically tried to go at it on their own before they reached out to us. Where they said they just tried to use the listing agent to write the offer, and then they said the house got sold out from underneath them is how they sort of phrased it. You know, what that actually means, you know, who knows what that actually looks like, but when you don't have somebody representing your best interest and somebody that's able to act quickly, stuff like that tends to happen. So communication and speed are huge, and again, believe it or not, not all agents necessarily do those things. So now more than ever, because right now in Oregon, the market is hot all throughout the country. It's even more so in Oregon. Okay, we are a migratory state. There's more people moving here than leaving here. So that's driving up the value of homes here. So it's more important to be competitive with your offer here than maybe even somewhere that you're coming from. So that's going to be the biggest key, is to work with us so that we can craft a strategy that's actually going to get you to win offers. Because, you know, we hear horror stories, not too much from people we've worked with, but from others about just writing offers and offers and offers and never ever getting accepted. You know, and when people share stories like that, you kind of have to wonder, what's going on there? Like, what's the strategy? Are you constantly just writing offers, like going into it blind without, you know, knowing what the house is worth or how many offers you're up against? But we do hear about it a lot. A house I listed and sold recently, the buyer's agent said that they had written 21 other offers for this particular client before they finally got accepted. And and the reason why they got accepted is because they came in very strong. Yeah. You know, you could kind of see that buyer had been beaten up over time. Their offer was the strongest offer, and it was the very first offer right out of the gate, actually. And same thing, like Paul said, list Thursday or Friday, review offers and show the home over the weekend, accept something on Monday. That's how things go right now. But there's a lot of buyers out there that are getting beaten up and writing offers over and over again because they just don't have that strategy. You know, they're just writing offers based on list price. And another thing too, you know, that is tough for people is, you know, most people are shopping at the top of their budget, right? So if you're pre-approved for 500K, let's just say, for example, you're probably on Zillow looking at homes that are listed at 500, 495, 490. And maybe so again,
even a little above.
Yeah, right, probably. Yeah, you know, so again, that's where Paul and I come in. You know, if you're pre-approved for 500K and you find a home that's 500K, if that home is priced way above what it's actually worth, you might be able to win that. But if you found a home that's 500K and it's probably worth above 500K, and you're going to compete with 20 other offers, you have no way to win that. So you need to be able to understand those things, and that's what we're going to help you understand. It's going to save you some pain of writing offer after offer and never ever getting accepted. So that's the biggest challenge and the biggest kind of pain point for most people right now, obviously, is writing those offers and not getting accepted.
Absolutely.
So all right, so we write our offer, we get accepted. What now?
Well, now we have to go through the contract period. So when we make an offer, we're going to specify a close date. So that could be a couple weeks, especially, you know, if you're cash, you know, typically on average, you know, historically 30 to 45 days. But, you know, we're going to put in a close date that is going to work for all parties. And between getting an offer accepted and that close date, we're going to go through the steps to, you know, get the house inspected. So do our due diligence, make sure there's no issues. In particular, there's no issues around health and safety. If there are, we want to be able to be in a position to negotiate with the seller to get those issues either fixed or to get you a credit toward your closing costs so you can get some cash back ultimately to take care of those issues that, you know, we may or may not have found. And once the inspection period is over, if you're financing, the lender's going to do an appraisal. Sometimes that can get waived, and those are things that we can talk about. But basically, you know, the bank is going to want to come in and make sure that you're not overpaying for the property. And you do see you do see that quite a bit, probably more than ever, where the bank comes in, has the appraisal done, and the house appraises, say, at $600,000, and your offer that was accepted was for $650,000, where they're only going to finance up to that $600,000 mark. So there could be scenarios where you need to reserve extra cash to cover that gap, and we're going to know even before we submit an offer whether or not there's potential for that scenario to unfold. But this comes down to communication too. We have an offer accepted. Now there's a ton of parties involved. There's a lot of deadlines. There's a lot of steps, and we're going to help navigate that and work with the lender, the listing agent, the inspector, the appraiser, all parties involved, to ensure that it's as smooth of a process as possible.
Yeah, I think that process, which usually is a little bit less than 30 days, I think on average for a conventional loan, right?
Yeah.
Cash can be as quick as 10 days, but it's usually a little bit longer than that. So inspection period oftentimes being 10 days, sometimes as short as a week. I think the inspection period is probably kind of the trickiest period, or the part that maybe people aren't as familiar with. One thing that's maybe different than it used to be, it's a lot longer. You have radon testing where you didn't used to have radon testing, for example. Inspections take 3 or 4 hours these days, whereas we've had people, that say, hey, I bought a house 20 years ago and inspection was like an hour type of thing,
Yeah.
So the inspections are very thorough, and so they're going to find a lot, and when they do, we're going to have to come back and decide, like, hey, are we going to ask for these repairs or ask for a credit for these repairs? Because when you write your offer, you are doing so as is, unless you put any other contingencies in your offer, such as, I want XYZ, done or fixed before, we close, which is not a common thing because it's a seller's market. You're typically conceding more things to the seller. You're not asking for stuff. They're getting all the stuff. So that's not that common, but you do have the inspection period where it is usually a little bit more common, maybe amicable, we could say, for the seller to actually give a credit or fix something that's maybe a safety or a health hazard, maybe something else that's big, like the roof or the furnace. When you write that offer, the house is being sold as is, but you will have an opportunity to negotiate if we say, hey, the inspection came back and it needs a new roof, and that new roof is going to be 15 grand. Then there becomes another negotiation there. So that's probably the part that people that haven't bought a house recently or have never bought a house, that's kind of the trickiest and aren't kind of familiar with, in that the inspection will reveal problems. No house is perfect, and then it's kind of a matter of how we going to deal with those problems. And again, that always comes back to communication with the buyer's agent and the listing agent. So the more you have communication, the more you can kind of negotiate and work those things out. And typically, even though it's a seller's market, even though you're buying the house as is, the seller usually does sort of concede to giving up maybe a little bit in fixing repairs or a credit at closing, just to kind of get the deal done. They don't want to put the house back on the market and and go through that kind of process again, even if it takes a week or two or something like that. So, but it is still a negotiation. So that's kind of one of the biggest parts once you go under contract, is to get that inspection, find out what things are going to be wrong, because there's always something. Is it a matter of, are they big? Is it the furnace? Is it just a bunch of, a small thing here and there? Is there anything that's a safety hazard that we absolutely must fix? And then once we kind of get through that period, then like Paul said, you have the appraisal, and then, that's really kind of, the real, the big hump, I would say, in the whole process is getting past those parts.
Yep. And then you're through the appraisal, everything looks good, or we need to make some arrangements there. Then at that point, we're pretty much in the clear. Your final application for your loan, if you're financing, goes to underwriting. You get the final approval from the lender. We're looking at the close date, which is always specified as on or before. So, if you're looking at 10 days out from closing, but you have the final approval for your loan, we could potentially close early. It just kind of depends on what works best for your timeline. But you get closing scheduled. You sign about 1,000 pieces of paper, and then you take possession. You get the keys. You move in. What do you do now?
One other thing too, I guess we could point out to people too, if they haven't done a real estate transaction recently, but they have many years ago in the past, there's a lot of stuff is just signed digitally too, by the way. So we're not actually printing out contracts and signing You know, it's not analog these days. So, and I mention that because, you know, again, a lot of the people that are probably watching this, you're out of state. You know, you might be traveling back and forth in this process, and just being able to sign stuff digitally is going to relieve a lot of headaches for a lot of people.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, so you close, you got your house. The last thing to do is get out and explore.
You got to go check things out. I mean, you know, you're relocating to a new area, and, you know, remember, you've probably identified, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 areas that looked viable, that looked like areas that you could see yourself living. You know, you could be 10 miles away from some of those areas, but, you know, you can still get out and enjoy the parks, go check out the restaurants in those areas. Obviously, get downtown Portland, get out and do some hikes, go to the mountain, go to the beach. There's so much to do, and, you know, it can be really easy to get insulated, you know, in an area, a neighborhood, and only, you know, do the same walk every day, or only check out, you know, a couple of different parks, you know, that, you know, you like going to, or that are really close. But, you know, if you're willing to get out and, you know, maybe drive even 15-20 minutes, there's so much you can do in every direction. And I think especially for somebody who is new to the area, you got to check out all the great restaurants, you know, and everything else that there is to do in the area.
Yeah, you know, and I think actually us Oregonians living here our entire lives, I think we probably, some of us are guilty of doing that same thing and being insulated.
100%.
You know, it's, you do the same walk, the same park, the same restaurants, even though there's, I mean, where we're shooting from, I've obviously been, I haven't been to this part of the campus before. This is, you know, so this is new for me today. Where we're shooting from, actually.
Yeah, we're at Lewis and Clark College right now, kind of in the Dunthorpe, kind of furthest southwest Portland area, pretty close to Lake Oswego.
Yeah, so it's just there's no end. I told you I went to with the Langlers in Sherwood a couple weeks ago. That's been there forever. That place is awesome. You know, there's all kinds of things, places, things to do that maybe even when you live here, you're sort of guilty of, like getting stuck and doing the same thing all the time. So that definitely, just because you move to one part of Portland doesn't mean you should, you know, not check out another part, because there is so much to do.
Yeah, like, you know, we talked about, Portland is pretty big. There's a lot of very distinct areas and neighborhoods, you know, that offer kind of different things for different lifestyles.
Yeah.
But at the same time, unless you're driving in rush hour, you know, you can get to a lot of different areas pretty easily, pretty quickly. So yeah, you know, again, especially, you know, being new to an area, you know, don't be a hermit, you know, don't stay at home all the time, you know, get out and check everything out, because there's so much to do.
So if this video helped you, give us a thumbs up, it helps us. Subscribe if you want to keep seeing more videos like this. If you want to comment too, we do respond to those comments, so happy to get feedback as well. If you're thinking about buying or selling, if you're already here in Oregon, or if you're coming here, give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, or you can click the link below in the description if you want to schedule a Zoom with us.
All right, appreciate you watching. We'll see you next time.
Take care, everyone.